Welcome to Deep Work Out Loud, thinking that fuels our life, our work, and our leadership. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. This is the podcast where usually I sit with another professional coach and we do some work around a single concept, a piece of inspiration, a topic we've seen come up in our coaching, something that's really present for us. And if we're really lucky while we're talking about it, we might demonstrate what coaching might look and feel like, but we'll see how this goes. It's all an experiment. But with any luck, you will leave with something that you can apply and use in your work or your life or both. And I think today especially that is going to happen. Today I'm here with Dion Elliot Jensen. Dion is a parent, a partner, and a seeker, and the author of the book Conscious Footsteps. Someone who has walked through love, loss, truth, and transformation. Born and raised in Australia, he has spent much of his life creating, building, and reflecting, often at the intersection of business, creativity, and the human spirit. His work and words explore what it means to live with presence and purpose in a world that constantly pulls us away from both. He writes from experience, lived, felt, and sometimes wrestled with, and in those rare moments when awareness and honesty meet. Away from writing, he finds inspiration in family, nature, long walks, and conversations that go far beneath the surface. Okay, so let's do some deep work out loud. Hi, Dion.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for doing this. I know you are in Australia at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
right now.
we flicked,
So
haven't we?
thank you. Yes. So tell me, what brought you to this work?
What brought me to the work was, well, I always say I'm a bit of an accidental author because I never really intended to write a book, but there was a profound amount of change that happened in a very concentrated period of time in life. And I used writing as a way to process a lot of those feelings and emotions because I wasn't overly good at talking to others about how I felt. And this was a way for me to be able to get those emotions and feelings out onto a page and then be able to distill them for myself in my own mind. So I had quite a few journals just lying around, and I'm a walker. I love to walk. I love to be out in nature. I do a lot of processing thought-wise while I'm walking. And then I came to the conclusion that it would be worthwhile putting them all down into a consolidated book with the premise that if it could help at least one other person get through some of the really deep emotions that I've been having and experiences which aren't so nuanced that they're unique to me, then it'll be really worthwhile putting it out into the world. And then the book Conscious Footsteps kind of came about. So what you get in the book is not a series of chapters necessarily, but what I've termed a series of walks where, although there's a congruent story arc to the book overall, you can read a walk/chapter in isolation and then hopefully go on a physical walk and allow it to wash over you. And it may resonate, it may not. But that just doesn't mean it's for right now. It just could be a walk for another time.
I love how you put it together, and it really does read like that because you read a walk and then you really got to think about it for a minute. You're not going to sit down and read it cover to cover.
Correct.
But it is I just found it so thoughtful and beautiful. And
thank you.
And some of your sentences just stopped me short, and I had to, let me read that again.
Thank you.
So I know in keeping with the theme of the show, we were going to talk about kind of one theme. So why don't you introduce that one theme?
Sure. One of my, I would say, biggest takeaways from all of the change I went through was around the identity shift or the death of my ego. And it really led me to write. I wouldn't say it's my most important walk, but it's the one that really did resonate with me the strongest. And it is, I am who I am, not what I do. The reason why that's so important to me is my entire identity was scaffolded around the corporate position that I held. That when I was fired very, very abruptly from that role, I felt as though I was nobody. And I had essentially outsourced my personal worth to a third party. And when I look back at it now in hindsight, it was so incredibly cruel to myself to have done that. And that's why it's so important to me.
So just to say, you were a CEO.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
And so when you got fired from that, it seems like it just broke everything open.
It was an incredible catalyst for a lot of change in my life. And as I said, it's not such a nuanced thing that's happened to me that no one else will ever experience that. I think job loss, whether it's through redundancy, whether it's through ill health, whether it's through, performance management that nobody saw coming, whatever it may be, we're all going to have, I believe, a catalyst point in life. And that can either quite literally make or break us. And it very much nearly broke me.
I think it's actually quite relatable, especially in America 2026, where there's so many layoffs happening. And I went through it a couple of years ago myself, where even though by the time I got laid off, I was saying, please, my turn. Get me out of here. Because it was so hard to be there during that time. And even though when it came, I was like, oh, relief. Like, yes, that's what I wanted. And then I still had all the feelings that come with that. And I was shocked because I thought, oh, I'm ready. I want this. And I was like, wait a minute. What does that mean about who I am and what they think of me and my work? All the things.
Exactly. Our identities are so intrinsically linked to what we do, but we just are willfully blind to that fact. The analogy that I use in the book, and I hope this resonates quite easily with the listeners, is when you meet somebody new, once you get beyond those initial pleasantries of, hi, my name is, there's always this awkward lull unless you're a really great conversationalist. And it almost always goes to, so what do you do? Wouldn't it be amazing if we went, tell me about yourself, but we'll get to that point later on.
Yeah.
So as soon as we go, so what do you do? And you reply with, oh, I'm a neurosurgeon. I'll go, okay, Julie's a neurosurgeon. Great. So all of my internal or subconscious bias starts kicking in. I'm like, okay, she's really intelligent. Okay, I've got to put her up on a pedestal because we would put that type of job role on a pedestal. Now, interestingly, you could be a perpetrator of domestic abuse in the background at home. We're none the wiser. We've decided to be completely immune or blind to that fact. And then the conversation would continue with me having your mask of neurosurgeon applied. Now, I don't know then if you're a family person. I don't know if you are heart-led. I don't know any of the really good, meaty, worthwhile things knowing about you. All I know is Julie's neurosurgeon. You say, oh, and what do you do, Dion? And I said, well, I'm an Uber driver. And then your internal bias would kick in and you would go, okay, he's an Uber driver. And whatever bias you've got linked to that, XYZ, would be applied. Now, I might be an Uber driver because I've been successful in the past and now I have all of this freedom of time and I just really love speaking to people. So that's why I do it, because I get put in all these wonderful different social situations where I can really explore who people are.
I've had that Uber driver.
Yeah, exactly. We all have. And or I might just need flexibility because I have a disabled child at home and I'm the primary carer and I just do this to get out. But unfortunately, society doesn't do that. And then what we end up doing is having this interaction or conversation between two masks. We never really get deep beneath the surface where we get to comfortably expose who we truly are. Or do we care about digging deeper into somebody else? So then what happens is we become, or our identity becomes really linked to that role that we perform. Hence the chapter, I am who I am, not what I do. If you don't have any substance or you don't have the ability to talk about yourself beneath the surface, you never really form a quality relationship or a quality connection with a new person. And these interactions go on and on and on over many, many years. And it doesn't necessarily need to be just in the working world. I use some other examples and I get very specific around, please don't caught up in the gender labels that I apply to these. But, mums have careers beforehand, then they become mums or they have children. And then their identity tends to shift based on that new role. Whereas in both roles, potentially who they are underneath them has become lost or clouded as well. So I think it's a really interesting topic because, as I said, a lot of us do it and we're just willfully blind to the fact that we've attached our identity to what we do.
Yeah. Okay. You laid a lot on the table here.
Yes.
The point you said about, and I read about it in the book when you go to a party and that's how you introduce yourself. And you basically said this, but it introduces a power dynamic immediately. That's really hard to get out of. And then I've been in that situation where then it feels rude to ask more questions about, oh, do you have a family or what do you like? Because and also I was thinking as you were explaining that the identity piece, like if you're getting a lot out of that identity piece, you have no incentive to go any deeper because, the spoils of the big job are intoxicating and feel great. And of course, that's what I want my identity to be.
Exactly right. And another kind of point that I make in that chapter is a job role serves two purposes mainly. One, it's to feed the ego of the job holder. And secondly, it's to signal to the person you're communicating with what value or worth you can be to them. And then that just in turn comes back to signal back to your ego again. So it's completely ego driven. And we just really forget the fact that our roles are temporary, but our identity is not. Yet we hide behind that as a disguise.
That really speaks to me, having spent 30 years in Hollywood. Boy. I'll just give you one example. Though I have a million. Early in my career, I was in production finance and I worked at HBO, and wow, what a great job that was. And my husband at the time was an actor. And so we would go to parties with actors and they would ask me what I did. And they would immediately become absolutely disinterested in me, turn on their heel and walk away.
Wow.
It was literally like, what do you do? Oh, I work in production finance.
Yeah.
And they were gone. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. It's awful, isn't it? Absolutely awful.
Terrible.
Yeah. And the real underlying issue there is the missed opportunity for two humans to make a true connection and based on who they are. And it could have been such a worthwhile connection, or it could also have been a terrible connection. We never know, but it is such a missed opportunity because it's just so ego driven.
And it was so bizarre because what they didn't know is I have an acting degree and we probably could totally be friends. And also I work at HBO, which is where you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But the other thing I thought of while reading this is, because you think of like, what are the alternatives? I remember listening to someone who said when they go to a party, they don't ask people what they do. They ask, what did you do today?
Mm-hmm.
And that gets someone talking like, oh man, this happened and this happened. And there's so much opportunity for real connection. If you just talk about, the mundanity of your day. Is that the word mundanity?
I like it. We'll run with it.
The mundaneness of having a mundane day. Because at the end of the day, everyone has to, get your groceries and drive somewhere.
Yes. Well, the irony of all of this in writing this chapter was I ended up playing a game and making it into a game because you also don't want to you have to recognize, I should say, that asking questions that go beneath the surface can be confronting to the receiver. And I've always believed when you communicate, you've got to be responsible for the wake that you're leaving when you're asking the questions. So I tried to be more disarming in how I would ask it. And in a very light-hearted sense, I'll say, Julie, tell me about yourself, but let's play a game. You can't tell me what you do and I'll try and figure it out at the end. So it's just trying to make it not land so heavily because the initial because we become internal when we receive a question like that is, oh goodness, what am I going to say? How do I answer this?
Panic.
And the irony of all of this was people would then say to me, so tell me about yourself. And I would be like, God, how do I answer it now?
I'm the guy who asked the really good questions.
Yeah. Doesn't mean I have the answer though. Yeah. So I think that's a really great way to begin to remove the mask in the interaction is to almost call out at the start that you don't want to know what they do, but just tell me about yourself first. But as I said, be prepared for that question to be asked back to you. And although it might be confronting, it's really fun to then try and answer it because when you're struggling to come to a point where you've got something that you feel comfortable in responding with, it's just as useful in that process of knowing what you are as also recognizing what you're not. So it's not just about saying, I'm this. It's also knowing internally that I'm not that. But I think kids do it so well. Kids are the perfect example of how these interactions should really go. And you can just picture them in the playground and they meet somebody new and they're like, hi, my name is, I'm this many years old. I don't like this and I like that. And they know so much about each other and they form a bond so quickly. And that's because that bond's actually been made around what really resonates within them and what's true, as opposed to this veneer that they're communicating through.
Oh, and they ask, and will you be my friend?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's so pure. The interactions are so incredibly pure and we could learn such a lot from them because they've got no ego layered over that communication.
Yeah. I have two things I want to ask you, and both of them are going to take us completely different directions. So
Sure.
I'm trying to decide which one to do first. First, I want to ask you, tell me about yourself without telling me what you do.
Yeah. Okay. And now when I get asked that question, I've got a response that I always give.
I figured you must right now.
I'd want to. So I answer it in two components, or two parts, I should say. Firstly, I always say I'm a work in progress. I used to feel as though I was a finished product, but now I really recognize that my perfection is in my imperfection. I'm constantly growing. I'm constantly learning new things about those around me, but more importantly, I'm constantly learning more about myself. And as I said before, I'm learning just as much as what I'm not, as just as much as what I'm learning of what I am. And the other one, which in this day and age, it can get really misconstrued. So I'll expand on it a little bit further. And that's, I always say, I'm a lover. And the reason it gets misconstrued is we've got this kind of distorted perception around what love is. And love always is this almost commercialized feeling or emotion or definition now that is often linked to sex, is often linked to reciprocation and obligation. Whereas for me, when I say that I'm a lover, I believe my purpose in life, and in fact, everybody's purpose in life, is to provide a love-based energy to how they move throughout the world. And the reason I say a love-based energy is,
Please just say that sentence again.
I believe that everyone's purpose in life is to move through the world with a love-based energy.
It's beautiful.
Thank
Okay,
you.
expand.
So what I mean by that is the only true feeling that as human beings or emotion that we are capable of is love. When a baby is born, they only know love. They don't know how to hate. They don't know how to be ego-based. They don't know jealousy. They don't know any other emotion. Everything else is taught. It's the only intrinsic feeling they know. Yet, as we move through the world, as stories we are told begin to get layered on top, as we become subjected to society, we learn to withhold love. We learn to manage it, to restrict it, to only give it if it's being returned to us. And it becomes really confined and constrained. Whereas for me, when I talk about that being my purpose for life, everything I do should be coming from a basis of pure love and recognizing that it's only something that needs to go out one way. And if it doesn't come back to you, that's absolutely fine, but it should never change your baseline vibration or resonance. That should be how you operate, and everything else is then layered on top of it. So a long way to answer your question. I'm a work in progress and I'm a lover.
How did you get from, if I'm not the CEO, who am I, to that what you just said?
Oh God, a terrible set of wonderful opportunities.
How lucky. How lucky.
So if you looked at my journey in isolation, you're from your Hollywood background, so let's look at it like a script. If somebody gave me the script of the last 10 years, I would have torn it up and run the other way, irrespective of...
Terrible.
Yes, yeah. I am not going to be taking part in this film. So how did I get there? I went from a completely inauthentic and disingenuous model of a version of myself to an incredibly authentic and very genuine model of myself. Through that period, there were tumultuous catalyst events that led me to really deconstruct and have my ego die and go through a process of who am I and understanding who I am. I've had broken down marriages. I've lost children. I've had all of the things that you would say are terrible circumstances happened to me, but they were all wonderful experiences. I went through anxiety, depression, at times close to suicidal thoughts, the real gamut of human emotion. But as much as they decompressed me, it was in those decompressed moments, or compressed moments, I should say, that the real learnings were unveiled to me about who I am, and the lessons were there. And it led me to this place where, as I said, love is the purpose of life. You're going to have to read the book, though, for the details.
Fine.
But can't give it all away.
Fair enough. Reading the book reminded me of something that was assigned to all of my kids in elementary school. And I'll be curious if your kids had this as well, or if it was just Larchmont Charter School. Shout out to Larchmont. They were assigned a poem, and the poem was I Am.
Okay.
So the whole poem was saying who they are, but they used descriptions of these senses, taste, smell. So it would be,
Oh, wow.
I am the smell of my grandmother's cookies in her kitchen. I am from warm hugs and hot baths.
Yeah.
I remember some kid, I am Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. So
How beautiful.
it was all of their loves and memories and senses.
Yes.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And it was so simple, and they got up and read them. And so everyone was in tears the whole time about these poems.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful, unique formula that everybody sounded like this incredible poet, right?
Yes.
But it was beautiful. And I wonder, if we did that as adults, what would that be?
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that they're so rooted in feeling. It's actually funny you mentioned, I was having a conversation. It was my mum's 78th birthday last night. We took her out for dinner. And one of my earliest memories of her was the perfume she used to wear. And I just happened to be in the chemist recently, and I found that bottle of perfume. And I just immediately went, oh, as there's the flood of memories and emotion that came back from it. And then she wore it last night, and then smelling it, and then the memories that conjured up. And the reason why that's so important is just like the poems, you always are accessing a different part of that memory. You're accessing the feeling and how you felt during it, not necessarily and it's not necessarily the words, because the words don't necessarily do it justice. It's being able to access how it made you felt that I think is so very important. Yeah, I really love that. It's a really great way to write a poem. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a sweet thing. And it's, good and bad, all the things
Yes.
that have happened to us and all of our memories shape who we are.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very important point. Very, very important point. It's not all I call Skittles and rainbows. It's all
It's not all chocolate chip cookies.
exactly right. There's a lot that shapes us, both positive and negative. But positive experiences can shape you negatively, and negative experiences can also shape you positively. So there shouldn't be a need or a desire to only have a positive experience.
Well, the humanity of it all.
Correct.
Exhausting.
Yes.
So how are you different as a leader now?
Yeah, good question. How am I different as a leader? I have a lot more freedom from the outcome attachment. And I would say that makes me a much better leader. And I also don't feel constrained by a sense of traditional masculinity where I felt that I needed to be the protector, the doer, the leader, the one that's always right. So having that element of detachment in both of those aspects has enabled me to lean more into supporting the people that are being led, to not necessarily make them shine, but because you're not trying to constrain or control what the outcome is, the outcome can really go anywhere, and more recognizing that let's not predefine where the destination is, allow it to organically get to a point or to a destination. And I think from a leadership standpoint, it's really important that we provide the fence or the guardrails, but they can be really wide and you facilitate the ability to move freely within the guardrails. And that's been a real big learning for me. Whereas before it was very much my way or the highway, and here's the highway.
I imagine also that your presence is very different. I would imagine.
Yes. I would like to, if somebody else was describing me or describing the change, if they knew me before and after, I would hope they would say softer, more authentic, more reliable, more trustworthy. So yes. Yeah. And I think that would have a big impact on leadership.
Yeah. And then have you noticed how people react to you differently?
Yes. The biggest is they're more forthcoming, more relaxed, I think more at peace and more trusting. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you about this?
I don't necessarily think there's something you haven't asked. What I would say as a close departing point is we put so much time and effort into worrying what other people think of us and using our external validation to prop up who or what we believe our identity is. Just see it as a challenge to know that your personal opinion of who you are and what you are is so much more important.
Yeah. Getting really clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay, where can people find you, find your book?
You can find the book at consciousfootsteps.com, or if you search Conscious Footsteps on Amazon, it'll pop up there.
Great. Dion Jensen, thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And so early in the morning.
Coffee. Always rely on coffee.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Deep Work Out Loud. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. I'd like to thank Dion Elliot Jensen for joining the podcast. If any of this resonates with you, please subscribe and leave a review at all the podcast places, and please share this episode with a friend. If you'd like to work with me, you can find me at julieharrisoliver.com. And let me leave you with this invitation. What might it look like for you to define who you are without talking about what you do? Take this on as an experiment. Try some things, report back. Thanks for listening. See you next time.